Well, long time no see. If you are new here, my name is Samantha. Welcome back to Honey Hill. Today I'm going to be working on the lavender slope that I have planned for my back garden. Now, the break that we've had some over 100-degree weather, but besides that, a lot of local wildfires. So our air quality for a good 10 days or so was either unhealthy or extremely hazardous. So the garden took a little bit of a pause for me. The other sad thing that's going on is at this time of year, the deer have just come through, and there are big portions of my garden which feel genuinely like they've been destroyed. Plants just look like skeletons, and nothing, looks the way that it should at this time of year. Something that I love and I've planted a lot of in my garden are Japanese anemones, and they're actually something, honestly, I've never really seen bloom in my garden to the degree that they should be blooming, to the extent that I should have them, because the deer love them in my garden. And this just, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about this because it is now my #1 goal for next year to somehow plan and budget for a deer fence around a good chunk of our property. Anywhere that I could imagine in future years wanting to landscape, I want our garden to be fenced in. But that, for us, that's going to include fencing the roadside, front of our house, and having some sort of very tall gate at the end of our driveway. So that's not, a simple or cheap thing to plan for. So it's something that I would love to make happen, but it's just kind of coming to the realization that if I want to garden the way that I do, I really need to fence in the property. And we also, we have a lot of deer, we have a lot of bears, we have a lot of mountain lions, coyotes, turkeys. We have all sorts of different wildlife. Some are more benign than others, but we have an outdoor dog, and just, there are some neighborhood dogs that we've had issues with kind of attacking our dog. And just for all of those reasons, I think beyond adding additional flowers or areas to the garden, my #1 goal, if at all possible next year, is to put in a fence. So stay tuned for that. But this slope is almost entirely deer resistant, because deer really don't, in my experience, bother lavender at all. And it's low maintenance. There's only a couple times I'm going to cut it back in a year. And it's going to be pretty self-sustaining. Now, all of my the grid that you see behind me of the drip system I've set up, they've moved around a lot in different storms we've had. But really, after I get everything planted, I'm going to bury it under the compost and staple it down. So hopefully you don't see most of the tubing when all is said and done. I have planted, so I have 150 lavender plants. These were marked as English lavender. They didn't have a specific variety, but the two that I am guessing that this is either Hidcote or Grosso. So I have spaced these 18 inches apart all the way around. So about 18 inches from each row, and then 18 inches between each plant in a row. And the spacing on the tag said 18 to 24 inches. So I am spacing them a little bit on the closer side, but I do want to have this very full, impactful field of lavender. These plants here I've planted kind of slowly over the last week, and I have about 70 or so more plants to go. I'm going to see how far that should cover the whole slope, but we'll just go ahead and see. So I've just been planting these with either Biotone, or I ran out, so I have Garden Tone. I'm going to be using that in each hole. I think what I'm going to do is put my hair up, take my microphone off, and just kind of get after it. And then I will do a time lapse and show you guys and talk about anything that has come up at the end. The other thing I'm doing is I'm weeding along the way. So as I'm going along this and planting, we're just kind of weeding as I go if there's any weeds. Down here at the base, there are a lot more weeds. On the path, I don't know how much of it you can see in this particular frame. The path that's at where I'm standing will be lawn eventually. So not too worried about what's going on as we get closer to the path. But anyway, let's get after it. Okay, so it's another day. I have picked up the 18 lavender plants that I need to finish the final row of the lavender field. But what I'm gonna do first is remove this bottom row of drip, which I actually am not gonna need. I am going to take that out just so that I'm not watering too closely to the future lawn. I'm not encouraging weeds to grow here. And I'm gonna leave a nice thick border of mulch between the grass and the lavender as this new bottom row fills in. So what I'm gonna do, I have these elbow joints for this 1/2 inch drip tubing, and I'm gonna go ahead and make a cut and cut off this. There's a T here right now, a T coupler. I'm gonna cut that off, remove that, and then I'm gonna just reconnect this new bottom row with this elbow joint. Actually, this one I could have just connected with a straight coupler. So a straight coupler would have worked for that, but I've just used what I brought out. And so I'm gonna take this line out and I'm gonna do the same thing to fix the other end. Actually, do I have straight couplers? I'm gonna see what I need down here because I have some straight with me. But I'm gonna remove this tubing and make sure I save all of my staples. The same thing here. I'm going to cut out this T coupler here. So that can all be removed. And then for this, it does need a elbow joint, an elbow coupler. So I'm gonna add that back on. And then something I'm gonna be doing with all of this drip tubing to hide it is going through with a bag of staples, burying it now that everything's planted, and then I can kind of adjust so all the drip tubing is as close to the lavenders as possible, and then covering it all with mulch. But that'll just be something I'm kind of fiddling with after everything's done. Okay, so I have some more garden tone. I'm gonna be putting that in each of the planting holes. I have been continuing to weed as I go. Where this drip tubing has just been sitting for a couple of weeks and just watering this compost, I do have more regrowth of weeds because we're adding water and there's nice rich compost here. So that's gonna happen. But I think it's really helpful to try to stay on top of everything while the weeds are smaller. The one thing that I'm seeing coming up that's making me a little bit nervous is grass. And that's harder to eradicate, like the little wisps of grass. So that's just gonna probably mostly need to be choked out with mulch as time goes on. So really, I was paying closest attention to measuring between the rows and then measuring the 18-inch distance at the top row. And then what I've mostly been doing is just lining up the next plant I plant with the plant above it and the plant next to it, so that I try to keep as straight of lines as possible. And it's not going to be perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. So. The other thing I wanted to point out is that when you are bringing plants into the garden, and I've done this before, and there's some nurseries where this is more prevalent than others, is there what might be, like for instance, in the base of a lot of these cans of lavender have been clover. And what I've been trying to do is kind of give a good 360 look around the plant and pull out and make sure to get the root of the clover out. I've brought in bindweed into my garden because of nursery cans. So do your best to make sure that the plants you're planting are free of weeds. Okay, so 168 lavender plants later, and the lavender hillside is done. Now you'll see I was able to gather up enough landscape staples to bury the drip tubing in these first two rows. So I need to go out and pick those up and bury all of these tubes, but you can kind of see how that makes a huge difference to not see the guts of the project, to have that drip tubing hidden. It just makes everything look cleaner. I'm so excited to see this next summer when the lavender has grown, when it's in full bloom. I think that this is going to be this fragrant wall of purple as we walk by on this path that heads to the back garden. And I just am so pleased with how it turned out. It really actually was relatively affordable. Now, the first 150 plants I purchased were $2.50 a piece. I got them on a wonderful sale. So if you are familiar with the cost of lavender, I feel like nowadays it's at minimum $9.99 and can be up to $20 a plant, depending on, of course, where you live. So $2.50 is, for me, almost wholesale pricing. And then the last 18 I bought were on sale for $1.99, so even further reduced. So you can do the math. Just for several $100s of plant material, I think the impact of this huge space of lavender is going to be well worth it, and just something that is beautiful and that is going to be untouched by deer. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time. Happy gardening. Bye.